Hello, Megan Thompson here with Megan Thompson Coaching. And on today's show, we're going to talk all about how the behavior charts that you're using for your sensitive child or teen, to include reward charts, sticker charts, allowances, chore wheels, all of the above, prize baskets, etc., are contributing to the daily meltdown cycle. If your child or teen is having meltdowns on a daily basis, hitting, kicking, screaming, or your teen is running into their room and shutting down and tuning you out, then stick around, because if you're using any sort of external rewards to support them in changing their behavior, we're going to break down why that isn't working for you. Okay, so first things first, I want to make sure that we're covering what we're talking about here. If your child is dealing with these big behaviors that I spoke about, hitting, kicking, screaming, body on the floor, you're struggling to get out the door, they're refusing to wear multiple items at any of their outfits in their wardrobe, they'll tell you that they'll only go to school if they get to wear these certain kinds of pants. They won't wear their new shoes, anything in that realm. And you find yourself speaking with a professional, maybe a pediatrician or a therapist or a teacher, and that professional has recommended, or you've read all kinds of parenting books, and you've seen over and over again a recommendation that your child should be rewarded for their behavior with a sticker or any sort of prize, a checkbox, anything like that. Make sure that you're sticking around, because you are creating a bigger problem than you're trying to solve. And I'm saying that with definitive certainty here, because I've seen it play out for over a decade. So those of you who are just tuning in, I've been working with parents of highly sensitive kids, working directly with highly sensitive kids and teens for over a decade as a therapist. And you're hearing me through our coaching company here, and myself and our team of experts collectively have many years. Everybody on our team has a decade worth of experience in their selective specialty or more. And our specialty here is eliminating that meltdown shutdown cycle for sensitive kids and teens. And so when we speak about this, we've helped over 200 families in our kid program and the coaching business alone, as well as in the private practice. We help anywhere between 100 to 200 families every year. And that's for the mental health work that we do. But in terms of parent coaching and the teen work that we do and the kid work that we do, we've helped hundreds of families so far. So hopefully that helps you notice how we've been able to break out of the cycle for many people. And that's why we know what we're talking about here, right? So let's break it down. Now, you might have heard or thought that your child could benefit from noticing that if they achieve a certain goal, like get ready on time, or be ready to get themselves dressed, or finish all of the dinner on their plate, or do their homework consistently without a giant fight. That if you could give your child a reward to see that they are tangibly achieving this goal with a picture and a check mark or a sticker, then that will help them achieve something that they want. So this might seem logical. You likely have had or do have a job where you are paid money to go buy things that you want or need, right? So what's the big deal? What's the big deal of using a reward chart or behavior chart to help your child change their behavior? Or your teen? Same thing if there's an allowance tied to this, or use of the car tied to them completing their homework, etc. All of these things are irrelevant rewards and tied to specific behavior that you need to see from your child in order to keep a calm and peaceful home. And if you're stuck in the meltdown cycle, even if your kid is no longer melting down about that behavior that you're marking on the chart, you need to make sure that you're listening in, because you're adding to the problem. We're going to talk all about this, okay? So when you're stuck in the meltdown cycle, there are many factors to this puzzle that need to be put together specifically and strategically. And it's goes against common parenting advice. And it's really important to understand that there is a non-traditional approach that we take here at MTC, and that's for a very good reason. Now, highly sensitive kids experience big emotions. We know that to be true, right? That's why you're listening in. Their emotions are big and deep, and they think about things very thoroughly. And they can be emotionally reactive, whether that be through empathy and compassion and feeling positive emotions very intensely, or negative emotions. If you're stuck in the meltdown cycle, that might mean that their big negative emotions are leading to saying things like they wish they weren't alive, or you would be better off without them, or that no one will ever play with them ever again. And this is a daily occurrence, how your child thinks in the worst case scenario and shares their emotions in the worst case scenario setting. And so if this is the case, then that is a symptom of the meltdown cycle. Now, when you're stuck in this cycle, it's really important to pay attention to how typical parenting strategies or traditional parenting strategies are making the problem worse. So let's talk about this, right? When you are helping your child learn to feel capable of solving their problems creatively, you cannot use an external thing, something outside of themselves, to motivate them. Why? Right? Let's break this down, okay? An external thing, like a sticker. Hey, if you do this thing, you'll get a sticker, right? So that's something outside of your child's being, body, and sense of self, their belief about what they're capable of. And if you're using that to help them stay motivated, you're not teaching your child how to motivate themselves. And when we have a sensitive child or teen who is stuck in this intensity, stuck in this cycle of melting down and shutting down multiple times a week, daily, even multiple times a day, like many of the parents that we work with, then your child is already dealing with a very large problem with self-confidence and self-esteem. Your child already feels quite incapable. Now, it's very important to understand that, because when you're trying to help your child feel more capable, you can't use something outside of themselves to tell them that they're capable, because when that thing goes away, if they don't achieve their marked goal, like, let's break it down. Say, for example, you're trying to help your child stay at the dinner table and complete their meal, or finish their homework, start their homework and finish their homework without major meltdown, refusal, complaining, woe is me, hopelessness, I can't do it, avoidance, anything like that, right? Let's stick with the homework example. It's probably easier for us to be clear on, okay? Trying to get your kid to do their homework on their own. Not to say that they can't come to you for questions, but to just get the thing started, right? To accept the fact that it needs to be done, right? Work hard. This is likely a value of yours as a family, that your child values hard work. Okay, so great, right? I myself am a hard worker. I started my first job at age 12. It is very important for me and a huge value that we work hard. We provide that we put forth a lot of effort for my family. So I know exactly what that's like. And we work with a lot of type A perfectionist, problem solver, fix-it people in our programs, because one of our programs for the program for kids called boot camp. People don't sign up for a program called boot camp if they're not problem solving oriented, right? So obviously we know what it's like to be a problem solver, to want to fix issues, right? So you value hard work. You know that this parenting thing isn't supposed to be a breeze, and it doesn't need to be this hard, right? So how do you get your kid to support themselves in feeling not only like they can do it, but also that they should do it, that it's necessary, that it is part of life, and accepting that fact, right? So let's talk about this. First things first, if you are using a reward like a sticker, a tracking system that lets them earn something at the end of the week or the month or whatever, then you're teaching your child that something else controls their life. I'm going broad here and laying this down just like it is, because that's what it is. A carrot, right? we're dog training here. A carrot and a treat is their highest desire, right? And if that's something that your child values, like a trip to, I don't know, a trip to Target to get their favorite toy, or some money on Amazon, or a trip to an amusement park, or whatever it is, at the light at the end of the tunnel, right? The thing about that is, for kids, is that they don't have it yet. They don't have the thing. And so when you're trying to teach your child to stay motivated to get a thing, what they're not seeing is their sense of capability. They're not receiving any feedback on their sense of capability to get the thing. And that's number one, because you're using a thing to motivate your kid's behavior. What's also important is that your child doesn't see themselves as inherently capable, as a capable human. Instead, you're teaching your child to be capable if there's a good enough thing at the end of the tunnel, right? But here's the rub with that. When relationships are hard, when school is hard, when they get a bad grade, when you have a teenager who is starting to do work but they don't get paid right away, or their boss is picking favorites, your child will still need to persist through challenges enough to get the reward. And if they're not motivated to persist through challenges because those rewards aren't coming fast enough, or the reward isn't big enough, then we have a big problem on our hands. And that's a sense of noticing that your kid doesn't feel capable unless the reward is easy to get. And so if you're using that plan, that logic, to show your child that when you work hard, you reap rewards, you lose out in the lesson that hard work is rewarding in and of itself. And that part is where your child feels fulfilled, feels capable, right? Because we're not just asking for you to, and you don't want to just raise your kid just to make a lot of money, right? Financial security, obviously, I can imagine, a goal of you for your children. That they are financially secure, they're making safe financial decisions, maybe risky financial decisions with a higher reward, and safe financial decisions, right? Whatever financial values you have for your kids. And it's also true that you don't want your kids to only be motivated by financial success. Success is a well-rounded experience when you're focused on emotional health and relationship health and physical health and financial health. And so when we tie hard work to rewards, what you're doing is you're breeding greed. You're breeding for your child that they need to get and to work in order to get. And sometimes when you work, you don't get you don't get an immediate reward, a thing in your hand, right? Sometimes the reward you get is seeing a smile on somebody else's face. What's that? That's empathy, being rewarded by empathy. Now, your child who's highly sensitive already experiences empathy. Unfortunately, if they're stuck in the meltdown cycle, they don't know what to do with that empathy. It's overwhelming. It's difficult to notice. It's difficult to organize and categorize. So that empathy already carries a major weight. And if they can't see that empathy as a rewarding gift, because you're clouding their view of what gifts are through reward charts, then you're contributing to the pattern of feeling like your kid only cares about themselves. Especially if their big emotions impact siblings, impact you in the household, right? I mean, if their big behaviors are tied to those big emotions. If you're in the meltdown cycle and you're getting hit, it's a no-brainer to think right after that, does my kid even care? Like, ouch, right? And so when you're stuck in this pattern, it's really important to understand for you as a parent, what strategies are you using that are keeping you stuck? Okay, so it's super, super important to understand. All right, so what now, right? If you're already using rewards, you might be saying, well, my kid likes the rewards. Yeah, kids like sugar too. But does that mean that you feed your kid Wegmans chocolate cake every night? I mean, it's delicious. Don't get me wrong. It's my favorite cake in the world. But no, you don't, right? Why? Because they'll be hopped up on sugar, because there are after effects to that. Okay, so same thing. Sure, your kid will be disappointed if you remove the reward chart. And that's the challenge. That's the challenge you have, is that your child can't manage their disappointment, or you as a parent don't have the skills to help your child learn to manage their disappointment. That's a bigger problem than the fact that they can't do their homework on a regular basis without a reward attached to it. So I really want to make sure that we're shifting an idea that the priority needs to be in doing the work. The priority needs to be on feeling like the work is rewarding, feeling like the work in and of itself has a purpose, that you're contributing to the world, that you're contributing to yourself. Now, homework might not be the best example for you as a parent to think that your kid's contributing to the world if they're doing a whole bunch of busy work. Homework is relative in that perspective, but we're talking about doing things like contributing to the family by making sure everybody's on time, by doing your part, getting all your your ducks in the row in the morning, getting yourself dressed so that mama can get herself dressed, so that mama can help the toddler get him dressed, right? If your 8-year-old is the one who needs the most, but you've got a 2-year-old who you're just trying to like shove a t-shirt around his neck because your 8-year-old is not getting the show on the road, right? So this is what we're talking about here. Your sensitive child might be the oldest, but might need the most support completing this task if they're stuck in the meltdown cycle. And that in and of itself breeds not only frustration, but resentment for you as a parent. And behind or underneath or intertwined with that is guilt. Crap, how did I get here? So here's one thing that we need to make sure that you are removing from your parenting repertoire. Rewards do not build effective behavior. They keep you stuck. So let's think about this, right? We really need to understand that when you're trying to teach your child to persist no matter the outcome, you can't use rewards as an outcome that it has, that's guaranteed based on a certain result, because that's simply not the way that the world works. We don't always get rewards for our hard work. And for your sensitive child, here's why this backfires even more. Okay, so this is mainly what I've been speaking about specifically has been principles for all children. Many things that many parents that we work with observe that what we teach here at MTC for shifting out of the meltdown shutdown cycle is imperative for sensitive kids, but it applies to all children. So when you shift your parenting strategy, you address it from a family dynamic issue, and as a result, it reduces the shame and the scapegoating that can happen when you're super focused on the fact that your sensitive kid has the biggest behaviors in the home. And that contributes to the shame factor of feeling like they are the crappiest kid in the house if you've got multiple kids. And your child's perception is super important to shift, right? Because highly sensitive kids are more prone to shame when they aren't doing what they are supposed to do, because they're more observant of other people, and they're more observant about what they're supposed to do. Now, whether or not they tell you that they're observant is neither here nor there. It is fact. The research goes on and on and on for decades about sensitive people and the fact that they are more observant of their environments. And if you're highly sensitive as an adult yourself, you're nodding here with me. Yes, I notice all the things. But if you're not highly sensitive, you got to just take my word for it. I've been doing this for over a decade. Like that's just simply not something that we're going to argue with. And so, with that being said, if your child is observant and not able to take that observation and categorize it and file it away to use it, that's a different story. That means your child is overwhelmed and your child cannot generalize their skill. Use their skill in all sorts of environments, right? So observation is a skill. Observing small differences, observing the big picture is a skill that all highly sensitive people have. It's part of the temperament trait. And if you can't, it's a component of the trait. But if you can't use that component as a skill, there's a category problem. Your child is not able to take that information and categorize it, file it away, and use it as information that's useful. Instead, it just sits in your kid's brain and it's like, this is just more information for me to hold. And so that's a skill that your kid can build. We help our clients do that all the time. And so when we help our clients do this, we see parents say all the time, oh my gosh, my kid picked up on this detail that like I never knew that they were, children will share so many of their observations, and parents will be astonished. I didn't even realize that my kid was picking up these signals or hearing conversations from across the room, or understanding where their father and I were frustrated and stuck, or even learned that teacher was struggling with a certain kid. I didn't even know that they were aware of these things because they were so overwhelmed that they weren't able to communicate that. So it's just a factor that was just unfiled in their brain. And then once children start to regulate their emotions effectively, their brain starts to feel more integrated, more capable, right? When your brain starts to feel more capable, you can share what's going on in your own brain. And so we see this, parents are speaking frequently about how their kids' thought process astonishes them. And is quite surprising. They don't really notice, or they're just not able to see. We talk a lot about being able to unlock your kid, really being able to meet your kid for the first time when your child is so closed up from their big emotions, or so loose in big explosions that you don't know how to organize your own assumptions of your kid as well. And so that's not your true child. Your child is not showing up in their true self if they're struggling like this with such big emotions and big behaviors. And so once your child's able to organize their experiences enough to use their sensitivities as superpowers and just powers, just regular old skills. It's the phrase I use is that they're able to generalize that skill. That means that they're able to use that skill in multiple avenues. They're able to use that observation skill in school, in the community, with friends at a park, at home, when playing with family, when conversing with family, or just chatting at the dinner table, or when doing chores. And so generalizing a skill means you can use the skill in multiple avenues of your life. It becomes general to your personality. So when we focus on this, it's really important to understand that many parents try to use rewards to build self-esteem. But what you're doing instead is you're creating an addictive quality. I do a thing, I get a reward. I do a thing, I get a reward. And when that addictive relationship is created, associated with work, your child gets even more disappointed when their work, while hard for them in that day, that moment, didn't get to the reward. Maybe they got the answers wrong on their homework. Maybe they didn't make it out the door on time, and you have a time associated with the reward for the reward chart. Maybe they didn't start their homework and it took them 30 minutes to get rocking with it. And so as a result, your target for them is that they do it right away, or they do it within 10 minutes of being prompted to do so. And since it took them 30 minutes, they didn't earn anything. And what happens is that you create a vacuum. Because when your child does earn a reward, you're tapping into dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter. It's a chemical messenger in the brain that sends to your child's brain a pleasure signal. Life is thrilling. This is exciting, right? This is why we say, hey, my kid's motivated. My kid really likes this thing. Maybe they'll do the work in order to get this thing. I don't know. Credits on the video game, right? Like, it doesn't matter, whatever it is you're using for the reward. Okay, sure. That's true. Your child does experience pleasure from receiving gifts or rewards. And we don't want to tie behavior to that, because what happens is you start tapping into the brain in a way that is ineffective. Your child starts to only seek that chemical intensity in the brain and is extra disappointed when they don't receive it. So why is that a problem? Dopamine is the same neurotransmitter, the same chemical messenger in the brain that is triggered by crack cocaine. So, crack cocaine is bad, right? Like I think we can all definitively say that if our kid was addicted to crack, we would be really, really upset and worried and concerned, right? And so there's a reason why crack cocaine is so addictive. Cocaine is the same thing, but crack cocaine is worse. And so in terms of the intensity of the brain's response to that drug. And so when we think about the challenge that you're experiencing, you might be doing less, I'm going to use the word damage, to your child's brain when you're using rewards to tie to a behavior than crack cocaine will, obviously, because that's a really intense chemical experience in the brain. And it's also true that it's the same, right? So think about the difference between feeding your kid a slice of, like 2 slices of cake every night, and that having a certain amount of sugar, right? And then the difference between that and your kid eating like 5 cakes every night. So obviously eating 5 cakes is worse than 2 slices of cake every night. And it's also true that 2 slices of cake every night is a lot of sugar for a kid to consume. So as much as I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist, we all can assume that that's a lot of cake, right? And so when you think about the difference of giving your kids rewards and using that as a motivator for behavior, it's easy to justify that you're not giving your kid crack cocaine and being like, oh, well, it's not that bad, right? But wait a minute, right? Where are your expectations for yourself as a parent? I know you have high expectations because you're dealing with the meltdown cycle and you're trying to get out of it, right? So just because it worked, quote unquote, worked for you, if your parents used rewards or allowances, doesn't mean that the research has demonstrated consistently over time that it actually is counterproductive. Why? Because it teaches your child to dull their own experiences and to value the receiving of something outside of themselves over their own experience, right? So when you put this big reward now again, for you it's a sticker, but for your kid it's a prize. Ta-da! Like they are thrilled by it. Okay, so make sure that you're looking at it from your kid's point of view, not yours. So for you, it might be, oh, it's not big of a deal. My kid, this is working. Megan, why are you telling me to stop it? I don't want to hear that. Tell me how to break out of the meltdown cycle without getting rid of these behavior charts. Sorry, not going to happen. So we were talking about your child receiving a thing, right? Getting that reward for quote unquote good behavior, for quote unquote hard work to provide the good behavior. There's a challenge in that perspective, though, that you're missing here. And one of those challenges is the fact that your child might be having a really rough day, and they might not feel capable of putting forth that effort because they know it's gonna push them harder, so hard past their own limits. So, say for example, your kid has, we'll go back to the homework example. Your kid is exhausted. They had a really rough day at school. Maybe they were teased or they watched some other kid get teased, and that was really intensely stressful. And then they come home and they just need a mental health day. They just need a break, right? So they're trying to tell you that, but they're not skillful. Your kid doesn't have these skills to manage that communication style effectively. So they're doing it by saying, I can't, right? I've had too many things on my plate. And so as a result, it turns into a meltdown. Now, if you've got a reward that your child knows they're going to lose, they might actually try not to melt down, but not because they're being skillful, not because they know how to decrease that intensity of that emotion, or to tell you what's really going on. They've had a really rough day. But because the reward is so valuable to them that they are willing to ignore their own experiences in order to receive that reward. What happens is people-pleasing workaholism after that. I am going to do whatever it takes to make other people happy with me so that I get my reward, and it doesn't matter how I feel. Highly sensitive kids need to know that how they feel is a-okay. How they're behaving, what their behavior looks like, and their challenges that they're having. That part obviously needs to change if you're in the meltdown cycle. So those two things are separate. But sensitive kids feel different from non-highly sensitive kids. 15 to 20% of the population, highly sensitive people are, right? So obviously they feel different because there's 80% of the population who's not sensitive. So that's okay that they feel different. But if they don't think that that's okay, if your kid doesn't think that's okay, if they think that that's a weakness, that they're wrong, there's something bad, they're broken with them, right? Then they will stay miserable. And no one was put on this earth to stay miserable. They will stop thinking that that misery is unusual and not supposed to be felt. And they will start to normalize misery and stuff it. And what happens when you stuff a can too full? It explodes, right? So your child is feeding their own volcano here. So this is really important because when you're trying to use rewards, teach your child that they're doing a good job, what you think you're doing is teaching your child that they are a good person, building self-esteem, right? But self-esteem is the belief that you're a good person. Now, if we just talked about the fact that your kid doesn't think that they are good or okay because their feelings are different from other people, and then you're teaching them to ignore their feelings to behave and to demonstrate good behavior or desirable behavior, no matter what, because this reward is so big, you better ignore anything else, then your child's not going to build a belief that they are a good person, that they can do well in the world. They'll start to ignore their quality of self. And that perpetuates shame, feeling like you're a bad person. That's what shame is. And so the next thing is we spoke about earlier, self-confidence. Can I do it, right? And children learn to override their sense of I can or I can't in order to achieve a thing. And this is where workaholism end up with, a worst case scenario, heart attacks and just overly extended. But best case scenario, a workaholic ignores their family or is rude to their family or doesn't have a family, right? On the other end of that spectrum, though, is somebody who falls completely off the pendulum and just stops trying, right? What's in it for me doesn't really matter. I'll never achieve it anyways. And this is that perfectionism that leads to analysis paralysis, which is I don't know how to get it right the first time, so I'm just not even going to try. I'm frozen here. And that can be either I'm frozen, I can't make a choice, or I'm frozen, I might as well not even try. That's depressive symptoms that we see in sensitive kids, sensitive teens. So it's really important to understand that the slippery slope that you're on if you keep going with behavior charts. So what do? You got to focus on breaking down that shame. You got to focus on not using interventions, not using plans as a parent that keeps shame in the game. You have to break it down. Help to teach your child that they are a-okay being a sensitive person. You have to teach them that sensitivity can be a strength, but only if they build skills. And you have to acknowledge that you are an awesome parent and your child's an awesome kid too. There's nothing wrong with either of you. You're not broken. All you're doing is missing those skills. And so when we teach parents what those skills are in a strategic order and you follow that strategic plan, then your child feels capable. When your child feels capable, they soar. They just go above and beyond the curve. Now, this is also true and demonstrated in research. We talk about this from the concept of vantage sensitivity. When your child has you can look it up, that concept, when your child has a better vantage point and they're more sensitive to it, they actually perform ahead of the curve. So when your child learns to stop ignoring their emotions, to start validating themselves, start feeling a-okay as who they are and that their behavior is only a part of them and that can change, then your child ends up feeling way more capable of changing that behavior. And so if this is the challenge that you're stuck in achieving, right? What is the payoff of breaking out of this pattern? One, no more sneakiness. Your kids stop stuffing their behavior, they stop cheating skirting around or negotiating to get the prize. Because again, what does an addict do? They try to get what they want, right? And there's an intensity there that a child can't help, that can be fostered consistently. And so you need to break that pattern, stop using the rewards to target the behavior. The next thing is being able to notice that your child can inherently want to do well. Children want to do well just because they know that they feel good inside. And so if your child doesn't feel good inside, then that's where the rub is, not in whether or not they have a fancy enough prize at the end of the tunnel. So when your child feels more motivated, they already feel more capable. That already feeds their self-confidence tank, and they are more persistent. Persistent children have higher levels of self-confidence. Persistent children believe that they are good. And when children believe that and notice that that's possible, then they have higher self-esteem. They engage in communication to get their needs met if they're not met. And they do that with skills. And they're more receptive that skills will actually work. So they stop feeling hopeless and helpless. And when that's the case, then your child starts to believe that things will work out well for them. And then that is a different cycle. It just feeds itself. If your child believes that things will work out well for them, then they're going to do things that help, that they're going to stay working hard. And I used hard work that might be related to homework or whatever, but it's also related to play. Work for children, play is work for children. And so you'll see this behavior perpetuate in their play as well, whether that be in board games with a family at home, just persisting through digging with a stick and the stick breaking and going to find another stick. All sorts of qualities associated with that persistence that is perpetuated when you stop using rewards. All right, so if you're struggling with figuring out how, right, you started using reward charts, you notice that they're backfiring, but you've tried other things before and you don't know how to get out of this, and you are done throwing strategies at the wall to see what sticks, then I encourage you to book a call, because we have a system that works consistently for all of the families that do that work. We have a 98.9% success rate for a reason. When you do the work that we teach you, it actually works. So great news. All you need to do is have a phone call with us to see if your family fits in that category. And on that phone call, we'll talk about where you're stuck, what you've already tried, and where you might need to go next. And if your goals line up with the outcomes that we provide for with our clients and what we help our clients achieve, then we tell you exactly what you need to do to go ahead and take that next step with us. Otherwise, we send you on your way with a plan, resources, connections, or learnings to do associated with your particular family's needs. So I'm not going to make a guarantee that what we do is going to work for your particular family. We have to have a conversation before we can say that would be relevant. So again, go to meganthompsoncoaching.com/talk or meganthompsoncoaching.com/teen talk if you're a parent of a high school age or older, and we'll have a conversation and break down what your next steps need to be after we cover where you've been, what you've been up to. All right. Thank you. And we look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.